Galileo Galilei, 1564 to 1642, Italian astronomer, physicist, mathematician, and philosopher, is widely regarded as one of the greatest scientific minds in human history and the father of modern science. Born in Pisa, Italy on February 15, 1564, Galileo fundamentally changed the way humanity views the universe, challenging centuries of established beliefs rooted in the geocentric worldview of Aristotle and Ptolemy. He was a central figure in the scientific revolution of the 16th and 17th centuries, laying the foundation for modern physics and observational astronomy. Galileo's life was one of relentless curiosity, intellectual courage, and groundbreaking discoveries, often made in defiance of powerful authorities. From a young age, Galileo showed extraordinary intelligence. He began studying medicine at the University of Pisa, but shifted to mathematics after discovering a deep passion for geometry and mechanics. He went on to make significant contributions to various fields. In physics, he formulated the law of falling bodies, disproving Aristotle's claim that heavier objects fall faster than lighter ones. By conducting experiments such as dropping spheres from the Leaning Tower of Pisa, although debated, and rolling balls down inclined planes, Galileo showed that objects accelerate uniformly regardless of their mass, paving the way for Newton's laws of motion a century later. His work on inertia also laid the groundwork for classical mechanics. Perhaps Galileo's most revolutionary contributions were in astronomy. In 1609, inspired by news of a Dutch invention called the telescope, he built his own, improving its magnification to up to 30x. With this new instrument, he turned it toward the sky and discovered wonders that had never been seen before. He observed the moon and found it was not a smooth, perfect sphere, as Aristotle taught, but rugged and mountainous. He discovered 4 moons orbiting Jupiter, now known as the Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callis, proving not all celestial bodies revolve around the Earth. He observed the phases of Venus, which could only be explained by a heliocentric, sun-centered, model of the solar system, as proposed by Copernicus. These findings were explosive, directly contradicting the geocentric worldview endorsed by the Catholic Church. Galileo's support for heliocentrism, especially his 1632 publication dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems, brought him into serious conflict with the Roman Catholic Church. In 1616, the Church had already warned him not to advocate heliocentrism as fact. But his dialogue, written as a philosophical debate between supporters of the Ptolemaic and Copernican models, clearly favored heliocentrism. The book ridiculed defenders of geocentrism, indirectly offending Pope Urban VIII, who had previously been a supporter of Galileo. In 1633, Galileo was summoned to Rome, tried by the Roman Inquisition, and found guilty of heresy. He was forced to recant his heliocentric views and sentenced to house arrest for the remainder of his life. Despite his trial and silencing, Galileo continued to work under house arrest at his villa in Arcetri, near Florence. He went blind in his later years but dictated his final masterpiece, 2 New Sciences, 1638, which summarized his earlier work on motion and laid the groundwork for classical mechanics. His methods, especially his emphasis on experimentation, observation, and mathematical analysis, ushered in a new era of science based on evidence rather than authority or dogma. Galileo championed the idea that the universe was governed by laws that could be discovered through reason, measurement, and observation. Galileo's life symbolizes the clash between scientific truth and religious orthodoxy, reason and dogma, free thought and institutional power. While condemned during his lifetime, he is now celebrated as a martyr of science, and the Church formally acknowledged its error centuries later. Pope John Paul II officially recognized in 1992 that Galileo had been wrongly condemned. Today, Galileo is remembered not just for his brilliant discoveries, but for his intellectual courage and pioneering spirit. His famous phrase, "E per si move, and yet it moves," allegedly whispered after recanting his heliocentric views, remains a powerful symbol of truth's resilience against oppression. In every field he touched, from kinematics to astronomy, Galileo left a permanent mark, making him one of the most transformative and admired figures in the history of human thought. Here's a deeper, richly detailed portrait of Galileo Galilei, beyond the familiar script to capture his remarkable scientific life, nuanced contributions, and enduring legacy. Early life and intellectual formation. Born in Pisa in 1564, Galileo was the eldest of 6 children of Vincenzo Galilei, a respected musician and scholar. Though initially enrolled in medical studies at the University of Pisa, 1581, his passion quickly shifted to mathematics and physics. He left without a degree but earned recognition early, notably with his work on pendulums and the hydrostatic balance, showcased in his short treatise, The Little Balance, History, Encyclopedia Britannica. By 1589, Galileo secured the chair of mathematics at Pisa and later at Padua, 1592 to 1610, where he conducted pivotal experiments, real and theoretical, on motion. His groundbreaking insight, objects fall at the same rate regardless of mass, a direct challenge to Aristotelian physics. The famed, though possibly symbolic, Leaning Tower experiment is traced back to his student Viviani, suggesting it may have been more of a thought experiment than an actual demonstration. Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, Scientific Method and Mechanics. Galileo championed empirical investigation and mathematics over blind adherence to ancient texts. This transformation of scientific thinking laid the groundwork for the modern scientific method. Observation, experimentation, and mathematical analysis. Encyclopedia Britannica, online learning platform, tuhin.world. In mechanics, he conceptualized inertia, providing early ideas that would culminate in Newton's first law. Used inclined planes to study motion precisely. Demonstrated projectile motion follows a parabolic trajectory, a radical insight at the time. vaultofhistory.com, online learning platform. Discovered the isochronism of the pendulum. Its swings took the same time regardless of amplitude, laying groundwork for the pendulum clock, Leonardo Newtonic. Astronomical discoveries and the telescope. While Galileo didn't invent the telescope, he dramatically improved its magnification, from 3 times to about 8, 20 times or more, by grinding and polishing superior lenses. Space, online learning platform. Then he turned it to the skies. February, March 1610. Published Sidereus Nuncius, Starry Messenger, describing, "Oh, the moon's cratered surface. Oh, the Milky Way's countless stars. Oh, the 4 moons of Jupiter, later called the Galilean moons." Wired, Wikipedia, online learning platform, TimePath. By early 1610, specifically January 7, 1610, he first observed Jupiter's satellites, realizing they orbited the planet and defied geocentrism. TimePath, space, online learning platform. Additional observations, phases of Venus, sunspots, and Saturn's mysterious rings, seen as lobes, space, bijous. These findings shook the foundations of the geocentric worldview endorsed by Aristotle and the Church. Engagement with religion and the Church. Galileo's work inevitably drew Church scrutiny. In 1615, he penned the influential letter to the Grand Duchess Christina, attempting to harmonize Copernican theory with biblical teachings, arguing scripture shouldn't hinder scientific truth. Wikipedia. Rather than opening dialogue, the Church issued a formal warning in 1616, barring Galileo from promoting heliocentry. Yet he persisted. In 1632, he published the dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems, cleverly framing heliocentrism as a rational conversation, a format that invited censure. Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, TimePath. By June 1633, the Inquisition had found him suspect of heresy. He was forced to recant and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. Encyclopedia Britannica, TimePath. Later works and final years. Despite confinement, Galileo's intellectual fire burned. He produced his final masterpiece, Two New Sciences, 1638, summarizing his studies on motion and material strength. The work boldly anticipated classical mechanics and influenced generations of scientists, including Newton. Encyclopedia Britannica, TimePath. Legacy and broader influence. Galileo is revered as the father of modern science, thanks to his experimental rigor and use of mathematics in natural philosophy. Encyclopedia Britannica, online learning platform, biography icon. His empirical approach influenced the rise of scientific academies and the philosophy of empiricism, paving the way for thinkers like Locke and Hume and fueling the Enlightenment world. Over time, the Church made amends, most notably, in 1992, Pope John Paul II officially acknowledged Galileo had been wrongly condemned, Encyclopedia Britannica. From a cultural lens, his use of the telescope